Um, so I wanted to ask questions to everybody. We've gone through this. We're up to chapter 15. So I want to do an abbreviated version of the discussion format that I have. The first one is that when you now look at Gita, now I'm going to jog your memories. What ideas stand out to you so far, regardless of chapters from which they come? What ideas stand out for you? So that's the first question. So go ahead and type exclamation mark if you wanted to just name the ideas at this point. Evanik, what ideas stand out to you?
The ideas that stand up to me are attachment and the center and periphery.
Excellent. Attachment, center, and periphery. Anybody else? What ideas stand out for you? We'll go for Madhav, followed by Brian.
The 4 different paths: Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and I think I'm forgetting the last one.
Dhyana Yoga. Yeah, Dhyana Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Wonderful. Thank you, Madhav. Brian.
The gunas and the yogas, the 4 yogas, how they relate to each other. I thought that was quite a revelation for me very recently, in our last meeting. Of course, Atman and Brahman and but that is for me a big one, that first one I mentioned.
Wonderful. Anybody else wants to talk about what ideas? Just name the ideas that stand out to you from all the meetups that we've done. So for example, I think the idea of Sthita Prajna is a huge idea. That is in chapter 2. Okay, so that was the first part. Madhu, go ahead.
Nishkama Karma was one of them.
Yes, very good. So Nishkam Karma, which is kind of not, working without attachment to fruits of the work. So non-attachment to fruits of work. Very good. All right. So these are some of what we had: attachment, center, and periphery, the 4 yogas. Ashwin, go ahead.
Trying to I think trying to reach a center by finding the good in different states of being. There's the different gunas, the Raja, Tama, and Sattva guna, circling around the periphery and going away from the periphery, and Sattva is closest to the center.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ashwin. So we've got attachment, center and periphery, the 4 yogas: Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Dhyana Yoga. And we got 3 gunas: Sattva, which is taking you towards the center; Rajagun, which is taking you round and round; and Tamagun, which is taking you away from the center. Then the concept of Atma and Brahman, which is a way of describing both the core and the periphery. I'm going to put the Ashwatha tree because it's a great way, one of my favorite ways of describing the integration between the center and the periphery. Sthita Prajna, it is having this steady wisdom, so steady consciousness, unfazed by joys or grief, keeping your head, keeping your presence, keeping your wisdom, consciousness, regardless of what is happening around you or in you. that is Sthita Prajna. Then the idea of Nishkam work, that means doing work. This is a core idea of Karma Yoga, of being virtuous in doing the work without getting attached to the fruits. Brian.
What you just said triggered a couple more thoughts, but the one thing that I picked up on kind of incidentally as we're going through all these texts is that the peace of mind
Yes.
can be very, I don't even know how to put it in context, but peace of mind came up a lot.
No, absolutely. That as a value, that is something, what does it feel like being at the center? That's what peace of mind is.
And then the other thing I picked up really from your commentary is the importance of concentration.
Mhm.
I'm really seeing that in my daily life.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so we have finished the first part. Now, the second part is about your evaluation. And we'll combine that. I'm going to combine the two parts. Look forward a little bit, a year from now or 2 years from now. You've internalized some of these ideas far more than what you have now. What does it do for you? What do you expect it to do for you? What do you think would be the result of integrating these ideas into your life? What have you gotten already from it? What do you value already from what you've gotten? And what direction do you see? This is partly using a little bit of your imagination, partly talking about your values. So this is like saying, this is what I've already gotten. This is what I love about what we are doing. And secondly, we are looking forward a little bit of saying, if I continue along this path, what do I expect to get? Evanik followed by Penny. Evanik.
So the biggest thing is acting from the center, and the concept that Yogeshwar brought up tonight about being at the center the whole time, right? And so I think getting that and acting from who you are, I think that's a really good one. I think another one that relates to this is the concept of you in the shadow and dealing with the part of you that you try to hide, or you know that maybe has shame or anything with it, and embracing that as a part of you, and the part of about acceptance of who you are and accepting other people for who they are, and an acceptance of reality. And I think in the future it'll just help me to grow even more and to be more open to knowing new people, and not so much worrying about if they're going to betray my trust, because they may, even though they may not mean to. And even if they do, I can separate, I can still know who they are and still appreciate who they are as a human being. And if there's someone that's like deliberately out to hurt me, I can separate them from my life and yet wish them well, and yet and not bring what they did to another person, and put what they did, put what happened in my past or whatever, and not put what they did on another person, so I can learn and grow from that aspect. So that's how I see it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Evanik. So Penny, what have you gotten? What do you like about what you've gotten so far? And what do you think, what do you expect will be the results, say 1 year, 2 years from now?
Okay, first thing, of course, everybody said a lot of things, but two things that we got that nobody's mentioned yet are like the Namaste and the Om. Those are two big concepts.
Beautiful.
And I think that going forward, I mean, I would say kind of curiosity and questioning. And because I think as you have pointed out a lot of times, that's kind of the basis of like the whole discussion between Arjuna and Krishna is you know, asking questions, trying looking at things and just, you know, saying, gee, what's going on here, and asking questions. And so I think that basically being in the world again and being more kind of childlike is the way I see it. Not like thinking, you know, kind of like, oh, I know what's going on, you know what I mean? But you know, what is going on, and questioning it and being very open to trying to learn new things.
Wonderful. Great points. I wanted to emphasize all those 3 points that you made. One is the namaste. Saying that when you're saying namaste, you're saying the God in me greets the God in you. And what the profound transformation of human interaction that is possible when you actually mean that. Even if the other person does not respond. It's really, really mind-boggling to me. The second one was the Om. A is Brahma, which is creation. U is Vishnu, which is sustaining. And M is Shiva, who is transforms or destroys. So it is seeing that there is a cyclical nature of life. And all of these 3 things are integral part of it. And you saying yes to it. And my favorite part about the Om is you say Om, and then when you breathe in, you're actually listening to the word. You're actually hearing the Om in the word. And the last point, I think, is very profound. The point about curiosity, the fact that this is a conversation. There is a tremendous acceptance throughout Gita of who individual people are, regardless of their state of knowledge, regardless of their abilities, regardless of their proclivities. All of that is taken as, you start with acceptance of it, and then you work with it through all, kind of saying, accepting all the gunas and using these 4 yogas in a flexible way. So it is a very accepting, and it has a redeeming kind of a quality, no matter where you are. It provides and does it in a very gentle way. So and that conversation format of, it's not something that is being said to say to a million people, but Krishna is talking to his friend Arjuna, and they're going back and forth. The man and God are talking as friends. That is very different than many other traditions. So I think that's a profound point. Thank you, Penny. Next up is Connie.
I'm going to say living in the moment, staying present.
Mm-hmm.
The other things that were really important to me were mentioned by Penny and Evanique. And by the way, Brian, when he described about being so much in when Shageshwar was talking, is exactly, it's like he was reading my mind. I'm so caught up in it. Then I try to talk about it afterwards, and I just find I'm garbled. But I was able to answer that the Om, and I'm using that with YouTube and in my meditations. playing, the Tibetan ohms and taking me into a much deeper meditation. And even tonight, as I was listening to the discussion, I was meditating and extremely relaxed and taking it in a very deep way, and bringing great like peace to me during the whole meeting.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Connie. So I want to comment on the point about being present. It's actually the same as concentration. It is the same as being at the center. In chapter 13, we talked about the Purusha and Prakriti. We talked about Drishta, which is the seer and the seen. So it is all about being conscious, of being genuinely aware of the world, of everything, and doing that in the present, because you can be conscious only in the present. So that's a huge point. And responding to both what Brian said and you said, these things are enormously deep. Gita is enormously deep. And this is true of other things that we are studying too, with the Tao Te Ching or the Gospel of John. And I sometimes, it's like I think I am awed by the profundity of this. And I'm acutely aware that whatever I'm getting, whatever I think I understand, is only kind of the top layers. There is a lot more to it. Now, the experience of listening to Yogeshwar, I think it's the same. It's amazing because he understands it better than I do. Now, again, he would also say that he's a seeker. And that's what everybody in Indian tradition says. Like Naneshwar, the way he starts Naneshwar is saying, look, I'm like a child who is babbling. And that's all I'm able to do. The Atma that is there in you, that the listener, the reader of the Naneshwari, you have the sun in you. And I'm like a firefly trying to throw light on the sun. And with that introduction, he summarizes Gita most amazingly in a single sentence. And that's what he calls babbling. Okay. Now that is in the Indian tradition. And that is about curiosity. Just like Naneshwar says, look, I'm a child, I'm babbling, but the babbles of a child are just delightful to parents. Ask any parent. As long as you know that there is more, you should babble. You should express what you understand with the full understanding, both explicit and implicit, that whatever you understand is limited. And that you will notice Arjuna is doing exactly the same thing. He is saying, oh, Krishna, you said this, but you said that. It's obviously contradictory. Why are you talking in this way that I don't understand? So the idea of going back and forth, doing your best, and remaining open is part of the Indian tradition. And that's the only way I see of approaching these topics. You know, these topics are studied by people for all their lives. And most people who are very good at it have the same kind of attitude towards the end of their lives, even though they are considered by others. And this is not just in the Indian tradition. Newton, his view, when he described himself, is, I don't know how others see me, but as for myself, I seem to have been only a child, only a boy playing on a seashore who discovered some shells to be shinier than others. So this is completely in the tradition of scientific tradition of trying to understand the world. It is completely in the Indian tradition of curiosity. So at the same time, I think there is a grandeur in a child playing with shells, or Naneshwar speaking, or what all of us are trying to do. So thank you, Connie, and thank you, Brian. Brian, you're next.
The you asked us to think about what about the future,
Yes.
and the thought that come to me, I guess what I would hope for is the sense of stability and peace of mind. But then I heard Penny say the curiosity, and you added the wonderment to it, sense of wonder and curiosity and openness. And somehow that all came together for me, that the stability and peace of mind comes from the curiosity and the openness. The stability is not like, it's not like being a rock, it's more like being flexible, being water. Things flow through you and past you and around you. And just being amazed and curious about that.
Beautiful, beautifully put. Thank you, Brian. All right, last question. Last question is about, so what we did was that we started by recounting what we remember as being useful to us. Then we talked about our feelings about what we have done. Then we talked about our projection about what we think is possible. The last one is going to be on practical things. What do you think? What can you do concretely to move along this path? What will you do yourself? And how does it impact practically? How does it impact other people around you? Now that, wherever you see yourself right now, or wherever you see yourself a little bit later, how does it practically impact people around you? And if you want to, so there is two parts: others, affecting others, and second is, what will you do? What kind of practices you will do? Concrete things you can do, habits, skills, in order to pursue this. Connie. Okay, Connie followed by Ebony. Connie.
Less judgmental of others. In other words, understanding that we all are different, and not being rigid in expecting people to be like me, and allowing them to be who they are. And I can do this by the manner in which I speak to people, and the manner in which I listen, truly listen, engage, and be kinder, really come from a love towards them, and the love in, God in me to see the God in them, that that whole idea. And I've been using that even in my walks, when I take my daily walks, and I just say that over and over in accepting, or if something is annoying me about someone, or I'm getting impatient, to just say that to myself to get me back in a place of center.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Connie. Next up is Evanique.
Yeah, I think practically what it does is, you know, from the moment I get up, I become more grateful for what I have. Earlier in the Gita meetups, we were talking about, the concept of being grateful for what we have at the moment and not desiring what we don't have. And I think the point about not desiring what we don't have has been great, because I can focus on what I do have, and realizing all the time throughout the day that I have more than most people. And not saying that to brag, because I don't have like, I'm not like rich, but for a lot of people in this world, I'm rich, right? I have food in the fridge, a roof over my head, money in the bank, and access to a lot of comfort. So recognizing that and being grateful for what I have. I think number two, what Connie said, is the concept of Namaste. And how that's helped me practically is, when someone is being a little, when someone is upset or, angry or whatever, is like seeing, the God in them, and then recognizing that they could be having a bad day, or, there could be some deep turmoil, or it's not even something that I have to understand. It's by treating them as by treating them like the God in them, it helps me look at the God in me, and it helps me to practice, self-forgiveness as well as forgiveness for others. And, the concept of, just recognizing that, people are not going to act in the way that you expect them to all the time. So when you're not desiring what you want, or not having expectations of people, and just allowing them to be who they are in that moment, it helps me become more accepting. And I think the concept of accepting reality means, like, I don't hope for what isn't happening right at the moment. I deal with what there is to deal with in that moment, handling it and moving on in my day. I think the last concept of the again of attachment is like not being attached to a goal. A goal is fine to have. It's good to have, because you need to aim towards something, but you may not make it, and that's okay. And not being attached to the goal or to the end result, and doing the action to do the action, and not even doing the action for the goal, but doing the action just for the sake of that action, and coming from the center with that helps. When things don't go your way, disappointment, right? You can deal with that, because it's not who you are, and you're not attached to it. It's just something that's happening. And I think something we talked about yesterday is looking at the thought, right? Like, you look at your thoughts, and you don't judge your thoughts, and you don't say, oh, I shouldn't have those thoughts. You just look at them. And like, I love what Yogeshwar said yesterday when he was talking about, you're not trying to even get to the root of those thoughts. You're just observing the thoughts, and the thoughts are not you. And you can just look at the thought and just say, okay, that's what it is. So it's all very helpful and very useful and very practical. And I'm so grateful to you, Shrikant, and to Yogeshwar, hopefully he looks at the end and sees how grateful we all are for his commentary and for your commentary. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Evanik. I want to invite anybody else who wants to share what they have found, how their interaction with others has changed and what they are doing practically in order to integrate this better into their lives. Madhav, followed by Brian. Madhav.
For me, it's been the realization that this mind and body are instruments, and the idea of the self that I have is an illusion. I understand it, I don't feel it. So that's the gap that I have to bridge, which is why I picked up daily meditation. But applying all the 4 different paths to this idea. So, for example, the Bhakti Yoga, this mind and body is for the Lord. When it comes to Karma Yoga, this mind and body is for the service of others. I'm a very intellectually inclined person, so better integrating myself in Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Dhyana Yoga has been helpful.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Madhav. Really appreciate that. And this idea of understanding what your proclivities are and then adding the other yogs, even a little bit of them, I think makes a huge difference, because we can see the integration of various things in us. So I think that's a huge point. Thank you. Brian.
So I don't think I have a program, but I don't know, I'm playing off of what Evanik said. I think I like a lot what she said. She spoke in more general terms, and I see how that also feeds into my life and me. So I guess I'd like to just stay on the path, just being on the path. The yoke is just just being on the right path. It's staying on the path. It's always being curious, always being open, never really, I was going to say never really being there, but, realizing that just being on the path is the being there. And but also as she was talking about interacting with people, so in my life, what's going on is my grandchildren are growing up and they don't need me in the way they used to, which is some ways kind of sad for me, but I still kind of try to insist. I'm used to educating and being the educator, as my son used to say, the pontificator, and I just can't get away from that. But but I could see, they're more ready for more freedom, more independence. And they don't need that from me. Maybe they don't even want that from me. And then that gives me more freedom too. I'm realizing that I can stay more on my path and not just be holding their hand. So that's
wonderful.
That's kind of a takeaway from these. I feel like that's a takeaway more for the immediate future from what's going on here in these meetups.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. I mean, for me, again, it's the Namaste principle of actually listening to other people, of trying to put yourself into their shoes, trying to understand where they're coming from. It's profoundly transformative, I think. Part of it is to let them be who they are. As you're talking about your grandchildren, that's, it's basically, just having the saying, okay, they are who they are and they have a God in them. And what that does is it puts me in a very different situation. And I want to say that, I'm just so grateful to everybody who is here, who keeps coming to these meetups, because I learn so much. from everybody. Because if you're actually listening to people, it's really revealing how rich the human experience is. And what you have is only like one part of it. Somebody, through their questions, it doesn't necessarily even have to be some spectacular knowledge, new knowledge. It's just that they're different. And you say, oh, that can be approached this way. So it's just amazing, the range. And it's not, it's several things. But firstly, I think the curiosity of the people who keep coming to the meetups is incredible. The openness is incredible. The backgrounds, many of the people here have done many things in their life, and they bring all of that implicitly, mostly implicitly, but sometimes explicitly, but mostly implicitly, because whatever good things you do flows through you, and other people, if they are observant, can see it. So I think these discussions are far, far more richer. I did not expect to get as much from these explorations when I started out. I thought I would get a lot, but it's been dwarfed by what I have gotten. Partly it is Yogeshwar. Yogeshwar is fantastic. But in addition to Yogeshwar, it is everybody else who engages the way you do. So thank you. Thank you so much. I want to tell you two other, in this discussion format that I have, I have two other discussions planned on that. This discussion format is actually leveraging the 4 yogas, leveraging the 8 cognitive functions that Carl Jung has. It's a way of getting at some topic that you care about from multiple angles. And multiple of us doing that, I think we see it far better than we could do by ourselves. So on Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, we're going to be looking at Stoicism. And the topic is the greatest insights of Stoicism. There are going to be many people there familiar with Stoicism. Even if you're not familiar, you're welcome. And we're going to explore Stoicism, using the full format, which is 8-stage, instead of this abbreviated format that we had today. And then on Wednesday, we are going to be discussing conversations. What is a good conversation? I think we've been having some good conversations. And it's the kind of conversations that are quite rare in today's culture. So what is a good conversation? What's a good one-on-one conversation? What is a good group conversation? What are its prerequisites? How does it work? Exploring conversation itself using this 8-stage format. That's going to be Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Hope you will join us. And thank you very much, everybody. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.